Hello and welcome to episode 14, Multifamily Investing with Bob Biggins. I'm Bob Biggins, and today we're going to be talking about the concession and closing process in real estate. Now, in video 9, we talked about the letter of intent. In video 11, we talked about the negotiations after the letter of intent, back and forth from the letter of intent side of things. And so the purchase and sale agreement is being drawn up right now. And then we have the post-agreement to-do list, which will include service providers and then your physical and financial due diligence. So once you do your due diligence, you have to get things lined up as far as the actual boots on the ground, what is going to happen for due diligence. And that's what we're going to talk about now is just what takes place and then what concessions or not will take place, and then go right into the closing process. So when you walked through your place, you probably had some areas that you could see there were potential pitfalls. Maybe a window that was cracked and you don't know why it was cracked, and maybe it was cracked because of a settling. You saw a crack, you thought, a couple $100, but then after further review, a professional came through and said, no, the building is really moving too much, and so you're going to have multiple cracks over the next 5 years. Oh, a bigger issue. Where are the potential pitfalls? You'll probably have some idea, or there's some things you're going to miss. So that's why you bring either a team in with yourself, if you're like a contracting professional or you're a person who's very technically oriented, and you bring yourself and your team in there, or you bring a team in there, or maybe some partners or team can be team members, and you have a list and you go through a due diligence checklist of each unit, or you bring in an outside contractor or an outside inspector who will inspect every single unit. Maybe a couple $100 per unit to be done, or you could use both. You could use an outside contractor and have him do just certain things, and you use your outside team to maybe get the model and serial number of all the stove, refrigerator, and this is in every single unit. You want to get into every unit, stove, fridge, microwave, overstove microwave most likely, dishwasher, water heater, furnace, AC, clothes washer, clothes dryer. All these things, you're going to go in, find the ID plate, snap a picture, and upload that to hopefully your tenant system. We use Tenant Cloud. What you going to do? And why would you want to have every single ID plate on there? Well, it's going to tell you that 80% of the appliances are 20 years old plus. Or, no, they're like all the appliances are about 5 years old or less. Big cost down the line that you can either negotiate in when you're doing your post due diligence negotiations with the seller, or if they're in good shape, then you don't really worry about that. It could be a systemic issue, not just if you have 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 refrigerators that are old, or maybe you have 60, and a big deal, that are old. And you're like, well, there's a lot there. There's been some deferred purchasing of assets over the years, and maybe that's something you could work out with the seller. So you've determined if you're going to do your in-house inspection or hire an outside inspector, or both. Well, that person is going to generate a report, or you are going to generate a report based on the findings of you and or your team. And so what do you do after that? Well, if there's a lot of HVAC issues, you're going to maybe call in a professional for HVAC to take a second closer look and provide a quote for what would need to be done. Maybe a building contractor, a general contractor, if roofs are sloping, if shingles look old, if water's getting in where it shouldn't, you might want to pull in a general contractor and have him provide some type of assessment. Could have plumbing problems, could have electrical problems, could have shorts, could have wiring issues. Well and septic is a provider you could bring in after the fact. Even like concrete and masons for brickwork or for driveway work or sidewalks. Garage door people, deck specialists, you name it. if need be, call in a professional to have him assess your particular situation, and ideally get a quote from their assessment. You may pay them to come out and do an inspection. That's not unusual. Or you can just call them and then maybe they'll provide just a free estimate on the hope of getting the work later after you purchase the asset. So once you have all your quotes and inspection reports and assessments, you boil those down into a list of some sort and provide the quotes and the inspection information and all that to the seller's broker or the seller direct if you're working directly with a seller. You can bundle findings. Like I said before, if there's 60 refrigerators that are old, that may be the case. Or if some of the windows look bad, some of them look good, but you all in total, there's 60 windows that need replaced or need the argon gas is gone and the seal is broken. 60 windows, $400 a window, quickly $24,000, it adds up. So that would meet the threshold of something you would bring to the seller. So once you get all those documents pulled together, you submit them off to the seller or seller broker, begin the negotiations. I take a step back. If the deal you have is so good that you don't want to tip the apple cart over and maybe the issues are not that bad, you may just say the heck with it. That's called retrading. And selling brokers, they hate retrading because that's the last hurdle generally to getting the deal done. Generally. And it's the toughest because you already negotiated in your LOI process, but then some things were found that you didn't realize and you go back to speaking with them about further negotiation. And that's where a lot of deals fall apart. In commercial as well as residential multifamily is in the due diligence process. So during that negotiation, you're still working with all your other trade partners on all the things that need to be done throughout that, but you're negotiating back and forth. Now, you can be really creative on some things. For example, say it's a large parking lot for a multifamily asset, and the parking lot is going to be $100,000 to replace the very beat up concrete with big holes, potholes, and people are turning their ankles and cars are getting flat tires. I mean, it's really bad. 6-inch potholes all over the place. Just not safe. And to redo that, you've got a quote for $100,000. A better solution may be $20,000 or $25,000 to have somebody take out all that old concrete and put blacktop in. That may be a better solution. And it's palatable to you. And you can start out at the $100,000 and say, well, how about this? How about we take a check and see what blacktop will be? And it comes out at 25, and that may be a whole lot more palatable to the seller than $100,000 for the parking lot that he knew was in very poor shape, but he just didn't realize how poor it was and in what kind of dollar cost that would be for replacement. So whatever you can do, because your goal is to purchase that asset, their goal is to sell that asset. You want to have a meeting of the minds. It's going to be contentious because you want to pay the least and he or she wants to sell for the most. So it's just a natural contentious time in the negotiation process. But it's generally both sides want to get the deal done and everybody's working in good faith. So ideally, you get past the due diligence portion and let's say now you've settled on a price and everybody's happy and the addendum gets printed up and says this is the new price, or it's going to be cash back at closing, or whatever you and the seller determine, get that written up in an addendum. That would be an addendum for multifamily, or that would be also an addendum in a multifamily commercial or multifamily residential. Both would utilize an addendum for that. So once that gets done, there's still a lot more things you got to be doing. Things like, do you have your insurance? You should be getting probably 3 to 5 insurance quotes because insurances range all over the place, especially in Michigan right now, because a lot of insurers don't want to insure larger multifamily properties. There's just been too many liabilities over the last few years, and many carriers have just left the state in total. I just recently watched a podcast where a gentleman was talking about a few months ago, or even probably a year ago now, where his bank told him, if you don't close in the next week, your rate's going to go up 0.5%, from say 6.5 to 7. And that could destroy an entire deal. All the work you've done, all the costs you've outlaid, the deal is done. So he said his biggest problem was getting insurance in that short of order, because people didn't want to underwrite the deal and they didn't want to do it that quickly. Because a lot of times insurance companies, they'll want to have one of their representatives come out to the asset, and you got to schedule that out, and you want to go through maybe 5% of the units or 1% of the units, or however, depending on the deal size. It all takes time. And for him to get the insurance approved and a commitment to the lender was really, really difficult. So you want to be working on these things really from the start, from your letter of intent. Start the conversations with all these professionals. Your bank account. You don't want to have this in your own name, so you're probably going to want an LLC structure or an LLP or whatever structure that you choose. Well, that takes time to get that done through the state. For this podcast to be the state of Michigan. And you can do one in a day, but you still have to send information off to the state, and you got to send your payment in. And you don't get a state EIN number. It's not EIN, but it's a state number until a few weeks later. So I learned this the hard way. I had my federal EIN number because I set up with the state, and I got my federal EIN number. Then I submitted it to the state, but I had to submit a payment, and I actually did it by snail mail. So it took about a month, and we were ready to close in 2 weeks. And I didn't realize it. I had my EIN number federally. I thought that was fine to close, and the title company says, nope, they got to have the state number. Something I learned the hard way, and we waited 2 weeks to close, and the seller was okay with it. It just was, it was unnecessary. I could have and should have done that sooner. You're going to need a bank account. When you close, you're going to get all of the security deposit money. You need to put that into an account, and you got to have that account set up already in advance, because you're not going to want to hold on to a potential 5 or 6 figure check of all those security deposits. Utility providers. God forbid it's middle of winter, you close on an asset, and the owner has set the natural gas to be shut off the day of closing or the day after closing. If you don't get it put into your name, if it's one bill for multiple residents and the heat goes out, that's something you're not going to want to deal with. So think about all the utilities, all of the services. There's a lot of services that are involved there. Think snowplow, think lawn mowing, think HVAC. Maybe you've got a company that comes in and they're going to check the filters quarterly of gas forced air units, and are going to clean the A coil or the condensers outside, hose those out twice a year. Set up those service contracts with all these outside providers. Do that well ahead of time so that you're not scrambling come the first cold streak or the first super hot streak and air conditioners aren't working at the time. Then once you've got all those things taken care of, you just sit and, because you've done this all in advance, you're way ahead of closing, you just sit and let the clock tick down till closing time. You're just waiting to buy your asset. You've got everything lined up. You're ready for closing. You're in great shape. You feel great. And you can go to your asset if you live close by. You can drive through. You can say, okay, what are my capital strategies? What projects am I going to do first? Do I have all my quotes lined up? When can my vendors begin the projects? What financial strategies am I going to work on? All the different things you can just start really getting deep into your business plan and determining what you're going to do, because the things you had to get done, these providers, the bank accounts, the legal structures, that's all done. And you're feeling pretty good. So then you go to close. You're in the title office. You're signing paperwork. Funds have been wired. Your funds have been wired, or you bring them in a check, a physical check from your bank, however that works out for you. And you're signing documents, and you get this batch of keys. You've got this big bundle of keys of 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 units, whatever your asset may be. So our next video is going to be, you've got these keys, you're at the title company. What do I do next? That way I can try to work people through their first multifamily deal, step by step by step by step, video by video by video episode, so that people will have at least a hands-on, what exactly do you do? You're on your first purchase. So thank you very much for tuning in. I realize your time is precious, and I thank you for tuning in to my channel. And please like and please subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode. Have a good day.